How goes it, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a little bit unintentional, but we're going to get into why. Because this is an update video. As the time that you're watching this, it should be, or at least time of uploading, it should be exactly 1 year to the day since I uploaded my little return update video. If you haven't seen that, go ahead and, I guess, check that out if you want. I don't know if it's that vital. I guess if you want some context for what this video is, but probably not entirely necessary. So we're just playing some Minecraft in the background, a little bit of Minecraft. I haven't really played Minecraft for a very long time, like just straight up vanilla. So it used to be something I played a lot, and it seemed like a good, simple, kind of casual video for me to play in the background while I chat. For the most part, you guys don't really probably need to watch. You could listen to this on a second monitor or something of that nature. But anyways, yes, so I figured it'd be a good idea to do a kind of 1 year since, basically, since that update video, since I officially announced I was returning. And we're gonna deep dive into some stuff here, some probably some tough topics that I skated around a little bit in the first video from a year ago. Maybe I'll try and go in editing and do a quick cut here and like flash some trigger warnings or something on the screen for you guys to see if that's still a thing. I don't know if that's still a thing. It probably can't hurt because there will be some tough topics that we discuss, and it may not be for everybody, or at the very least, it might be for somebody as long as they have, if they're informed beforehand. But first section here, we're going to call it kind of the channel, my goals from before, so what worked out on the channel. Obviously, in the last one, I kind of did touch about, like, what am I going to be playing on the channel, and I was basically very much open. Like, it could be whatever for the most part. So of what I played, kind of what worked for the channel, and surprisingly, it was both Project Zomboid and then, really surprisingly, was Humanity Z. I really didn't think Humanity Z was going to do as well as it did, but at this point, Humanity Z, I think, or actually I'm confident in saying that it even blew Project Zomboid out of the water. I thought Project Zomboid, because it was just kind of maybe the more known game, been around longer, whatever, bigger following, that it would do better, and it did. It did better than I anticipated. But of the two, I thought it would do better. I thought Humanity Z was just going to be a bit of a little transition series while the devs figured out Build 42, which a year later it's still unstable, by the way. So that's insane. But I thought it was going to be a little transition series, but no, it's like, I think one of the Humanity Z videos is now my third most watched video on the channel, which is crazy when you think about it. Like, some of these channels have been sitting here pre my return, and like that gap where I was gone for 4 years. Like, some of these videos are 8, 9 years old or something like that. I can't remember it off the top of my head. And it's just kind of dethroned a bunch of the higher performing ones. And like, I think one of them is sitting at spot 3 right now, which is crazy. So those both were a success. I also had, I kind of fell into a bit of a zombie niche, which is, I didn't want to do, but at the same time it was working. So when I put Humanity Z on a pause, I transitioned into the Dead, Our Darkest Days, and that did okay. Not nearly as well. It is a different type of game than the other two. The other two, like, while they are all zombie games and they are essentially a survival game, Into the Dead is very different. It's more of like management than it is survival. Like, yes, you are surviving, but it's more of the management side of it. And so I don't think it had as much of a following. I apologize. You guys know that if you're not new here, you know the role. My voice gets weak, and it's been a little while since I've done a video. So, but yeah, the whole zombie niche in general was a success. I had a couple other games. I did some give it a goes. Nothing like crazy. Everything was fine. Some steady views. Some definitely did better than others. Like, I think it was Everhome was kind of like a cozy little thing, which that was fine. It didn't do great on the channel, but also I didn't have the most fun playing it either, and I think that can kind of show. So there's like things like that. It was overall, it was okay. It was okay. We saw some growth in terms of subscribers. I think I started the year of like just barely over 100 subscribers, I think it was. And now I I think at the time of recording, we're at 275, right? So it's not a crazy amount of growth. And it definitely stalled out when I kind of put a pause on Humanity. But it's still growth, so hopefully that can keep going in the new year. We'll see. We're gonna touch on some stuff after, but yeah, we'll see. I also talked about last time how I wanted to return, and I was gonna focus on streaming actually, because YouTube takes more effort. So I wanted to return and be more focused on my streaming, because streaming, well, first of all, it's easier. I don't want to say it's easy, right? Like to have a high quality stream, it's not actually easy. And I am great at being a bit lazy about it. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of turning on a game, right? And interacting with people. So did that, and I also am, like I mentioned, I am an affiliate over on Twitch. So like I can have the ability to generate income. I can't do that on YouTube yet. But did that happen? Not really. I'm not saying I never did stream. I did stream. The streams I did, the VODs are up on my VOD channel. They are there. They were very much different games than I would have been playing on the channel. A lot of shooters and other story stuff, but very different. But I did not get to focus on streaming like I wanted to. And there's reasons, and those reasons will be revealed later when we get into the more touchy subjects. But yeah, I didn't have it in me. Even though streaming is easier, it does also require a certain headspace at the time of streaming. And with what's been going on the last year, I didn't always have that headspace on me or in me, whatever. So that it just became actually easier to record videos, because at least when I had a moment, I could sit down and record a video, edit it, and throw it out. Like a lot of my YouTube videos were maybe not great the last year. They were very much kind of sit down, play for a while, minimal editing. I did edit a bit more as time went on. Tried to cut out some of the extra lulls, but they were very much kind of just sit down, record, throw it in the program, kind of anything that I really needed to cut out, and then upload it. And I could do that within a day. Versus, like I said, streaming, you have to be in it in that moment because you're live, right? Like there's no like fake it and then upload it when it's ready. So I'd still love to do it, but yeah, we'll see. And then in terms of the channel, the last thing for the channel is what's next. Well, every intention of continuing. I have no intention of stopping. The big thing right around the corner is the return of Humanity Season 2. That was honestly supposed to have happened already. The devs said that 1.0 was going to come out last year. But then late last year, 2025, they said they had to delay till February. So we're waiting until February for that. But there may be some hiccups into that, which, again, we'll touch on later if you are someone that's waiting for that series. I have every intention of doing it. Every intention of doing a Season 2. I enjoyed the game. People enjoyed watching it. I have every intention of that, of doing it again. And I have every intention of continuing with the channel, just like I have every intention of actually getting streaming going. But there's going to be some hiccups, possibly. So let's transition into the next little segment of this video. I'm just going to title it Me. So Me. Last video, I talked about, I made a passing comment about, while I was talking about where I was, why was I gone, etc., etc., I made a passing comment about how I've always struggled with my mental health. But I never really did a deep dive. And I'm going to go a bit deeper into it this time, just so you guys can understand it a bit more. I'm sure some of you at this point are like, oh, I don't get mental, I'm so tired. Listen, it's a real thing. And it affects stuff. It affects people how people can do things. So we're going to get real. We're going to be a little bit real. And this is where any of those potential trigger warnings, hopefully I remember to do it in editing. Please pass me, remember, or future me, remember. But yeah, so deeper dive. What did I mean when I said I've always struggled with my mental? Oh, look at this. Look at this pretty shot. Look at me standing there as the sun sets, talking about my mental health. Look at that. So beautiful. Yes. So I've been diagnosed from a very young age, quite frankly. I am, well, should I just, yeah, I'm going to be turning 38 this year. So I'm not a young man. I don't know if some of you guys realize that or not. I'm not a young man. I'm not an old man, but I'm not a young man either. But I have been diagnosed with like clinical depression since my teens at some point, or some version of depression, and then eventually it became like clinical, right? Um, but yeah, some form of depression I've had since my teen years, like diagnosed. I was definitely depressed. I could tell at a younger age. I just didn't understand what depression was. Um, but it got really bad in my teen years, like really, really bad. Um, to the point at 20, I did have an attempt on myself. Yes, if you know what I mean. I'm trying to be sensitive, even though did trigger warnings. I'm trying to be sensitive about certain words. There was an attempt, and it did land me in a institution, a medical facility, if you will, for I think a little over a week for monitoring, because it was nearly successful. But just to kind of like show how bad it's gotten, has been at for me at times. So, like I said, that was when I was 20. I am now going on 38, for like 6 months. So I'm still 37. But that's like what 17 and a half ish years of kind of fighting since that day. It's not easy. It's very difficult. It's day to day. Some days are harder than others. Some periods of life are harder than others. Um, that's just kind of how it goes. You do what you can to manage it. You know, you have professional help, whatever. Like what works for you, whether it's counseling, medications, combinations of the both, relying on friends, etc., etc. You do what you can. But sometimes for the world of like, say, content creation, it's hard because it's hard to just. I know some people think, oh, you're just sitting there playing a video game. It can be very difficult to like sit there and chat and kind of put on like a whoa. And it's not to say that every time I've ever done a video or stream, I'm faking it. It's just in that moment, maybe I'm okay. I'm doing okay. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of people get depression wrong in that like they think you're supposed to just be miserable and sad and whatever and kind of like empty, you know, kind of void 24/7. And in the extreme cases, you can be. But it's not like that all the time. Sometimes you actually do have moments. But even those moments can be exhausting. So there is that. I'm very tired. But I also have anxiety. I also have an issue with anxiety with like surprisingly and annoyingly kind of like a social anxiety. At least that's what I've been diagnosed. Right? Like I've kind of had like a general anxiety, but like a focus on social anxiety because I don't really do great in crowds. Which is always annoying because growing up I liked drama and theater and stuff like that. So like you know, the idea of performing. And I did do plays and stuff like that, but look at me, I got angry at myself. I punched the berries, and then I hurt myself. That's kind of, Jesus, topics, and then saying that. Focus. But yeah, I was like a bit of a theater kid or what, not like a hardcore theater kid. Theater kids, I don't know, they're a different breed. But like I definitely did like dramas and performance, and I did for a time go to a high school that like you had to audition to get in if you weren't like local. You had to go into like one of their special. They were like musical theater, drama focus, or like even visual arts. I was drama focus. I had to audition to get in, and I spent a year there before. Well, honestly, the things with the depression and stuff kind of took over, and I wanted to be with the friends I knew, so I left. But it's difficult doing that sort of stuff, putting yourself in social situations when you have social anxiety, right? Um, it kind of makes it really hard. Even something like a job, like work. I've worked plenty of different jobs over my life, and a lot of them are social. They require social, and it can be very draining because your body kind of goes into the flight or fight mode, like 24/7. Instead of like it activating when there's danger or something, you're just always there. Like your body is interpreting just social interactions or beings like in the world as danger, and it's like it's not. Um, I enjoy socializing with people, which is annoying. That's the annoying thing, especially people that are similar in like with interests or whatever. I love it, right? I love it. So it can be really frustrating that like I can get so drained from it at times. Though not every social situation drains me, right? Like sometimes I can be okay. I have like my comfort people or my comfort locations. You know what I mean? But I do have that. So like I've been diagnosed like you know some form of depression for probably at this point like closing in on 20 years, as well as anxiety, some form of anxiety for closing in on 20 years. Lately though, I say lately, honestly, it's been an off and on battle for the last 5 years. I'm pretty sure there's something undiagnosed there, um, and that potentially the depression, anxiety, maybe it's borderline misdiagnosis. I'm never someone that's gonna diagnose myself. I know a lot of people like to do that. They read some symptoms or whatever online, and they decide, oh, I am this, I have that. And maybe they're right, right? Maybe they are correct, but I think it's better to get that information, become informed, and then have a discussion with the professionals and let them decide, right? Because there's a lot of people that will diagnose themselves and then kind of go about their lives thinking that and like managing it for that way when maybe that's not even the correct way to manage that because that's not actually what you have. But I am fairly confident I do have some sort of undiagnosed something, or slightly misdiagnosed, perhaps. I'm like, again, I don't want to self-diagnose, but like, if I was told I have ADHD, I would not be surprised, like in the least. Not even a little bit. Not even a tiniest grain of salt would I be surprised. And it is something I've worked with my doctor a little bit off and on over the years, and the reason why it's off and on, well, we'll get a bit into that, especially the last year and a bit. But also just because I don't know, I have a hard time sometimes. Life has been difficult the last bunch of years. There's also discussions that like I may have a little bit of dyslexia. I have a hard time sometimes. You guys watch the videos and you've listened to me try to read, and sometimes I just completely jumble it up. And I think that's not just because I'm dumb, which I mean that can be dumb sometimes. I'm capable of intelligence. I'm good at being entertaining dumb. You know what I mean? Like I'm good at letting myself be stupid, right? Which I think everyone should do that more. Like allowing yourself to kind of be an idiot because I don't know, it just makes life more fun. Everyone's too hyper obsessed with being the smart one. But I can also be quite intelligent as well, right? Like, when I do say if I do Smart Boys with my buddy Cirque, which I've done videos on, part of my brain can activate when needed. And even in those situations, though, they tend to be entertainment. So I don't necessarily go full, but like I can turn on an intelligence thing. Like I am okay. I definitely have weak points. But yeah, it's not the point I'm making is the reason sometimes I jumble up my words is because I think it doesn't display correctly to me. Like I don't see it correctly, at least at first, which is where the whole dyslexia stuff sort of comes in. My previous job, like I mentioned, I worked in the parking enforcement. I mentioned, sorry, in my previous video of this update stuff. I mentioned how I worked in parking, and a lot of that was recognizing license plates and calling the license plates out. And without fail, it became like a running gag. Without fail, despite the fact that I could visually see what the license plate was, ABC 123. Without fail, I would call out that we're looking for plate ABC 132, like without fail, at least 10 times a day, and it became a running gag. And like I could catch myself on it, but it's like my brain, something between my brain and my mouth. There's a disconnect at times, or at least maybe the way I see it after I say it. I'm not. I would need to do further work with my professional, which I intend to do at some point. But yeah, so like in terms of like me, diagnosed with forms of depression, diagnosed with anxiety, would not be surprised if I have ADHD or some sort of or some sort of dyslexia. I found out, sometimes I can't do words. I can't pronounce words. I did find out that I was never told this, that I was a bit like slow speaking. Like, or not slow in the sense of like, oh, he learns slow. Like, you know how like they when you have a baby, they say, oh, they expect you to start speaking or talking by this age and start walking by this age. And then if you're not doing it, they can kind of say like, oh, like maybe we should start monitoring for something or whatever. I think apparently I was like a little bit behind in terms of like when I actually started speaking. Not so much that they became crazy worried, which is probably why nothing ever maybe got done when I was younger. But there was like there is a bit of a like I was a little bit behind, and then when I did start speaking, there was definitely like a pronunciation and like enunciation thing. It's something I've had to work really hard over the years. And I could do find sometimes by myself when I'm editing back, I'm like, oh, you're mumbling and stuff again. I do have to like hyper focus on it. So I don't know what that would be, but I'm sure there's something with that too. So like I have many struggles in my brain. You know what I mean? Many struggles in terms of like who me is. Many struggles. And you're not, so you know, if you're not alone. If you have those struggles, you're not alone. Like if you just feel different, because I feel I am just different. You know what I mean? Life has always felt like it's a bit more difficult for me consistently. You know, and it gets a lot sometimes. It gets a lot. Um, and what also gets a lot is something I talked about again in the previous update is I had just recently-ish been laid off. I did the update, obviously, January 11th, 2025. I had mentioned in August in 2024, I had been laid off from my long-term job. I have still not been able to get hired anywhere since that day, which is very difficult. It's very hard to spend at this point over a year applying for jobs. And like, I'm not even being picky. I'm not even being picky. I'm applying to everywhere and everywhere I possibly can. Anything that I think I can remotely do, which I feel like I'm pretty capable of doing a lot, I'm going to have a sip of water. But I feel like I'm pretty capable. I've worked a wide range of jobs over my years, both like, say, physical general labor kind of stuff. I've done, customer service style stuff. I've done the stuff like, even at the college, to parking. It's different. It's very mentally taxing, and like it does require an ability to interact with customers, but also like I've worked a range of jobs, so like I have a clear adaptability on my resume, but I can't even get hired for the most mundane of tasks of jobs at this point, which is not fun. It's very difficult. It's very straining to not have an income. And I know you're thinking, well, if you have an income, how the hell do you not have an income? How do you live? Well, yes, like I said, I'm 37, and I do still live at home. I'm lucky enough to live with my mother, and she doesn't get on me about that kind of stuff. I help out. I always have. It's not like I just do it to compensate. I always have, even from a young age. I'll help cook, I'll help clean, I'll help whatever, right? Just to kind of pick up some slack when I can, but especially now, right? But I don't like that. I wish I had my own funds, because my own funds, well, I mean, it takes some stress off. It allows me to have my own life, right? Like I'm not kind of locked in my own space because I don't have the funds to go really do something, which obviously kind of rolls into the depression, the anxiety, right? Like the fact that like I'm not even capable of really necessarily saying being social or anything, and I'm getting locked in, makes it worse, because then now when I have to try and do it, I haven't done it, say, for months or weeks or whatever, and then my body's on like, whoa, what the hell's that? What is all this new stuff, right? So it's not great. It hasn't been great. I wish I had found something, even like I said, even part-time. But the job market here, as it is with a lot of places, but where I live in Canada land, it sucks. It really sucks. And there's a large number of reasons why that I could get into, but that's not the point of this video. The point is that an update and pull over from the previous video about me specifically in this video is I still have not been able to get hired. I've had some interviews and stuff like that, and I've always known that maybe I don't interview the greatest. I always think I do well, but then obviously if I'm not getting hired, there must be something. Or there also is just so many damn candidates that at the end of the day, any little thing, right, then kind of eliminates you. So yeah, that's it's not great, but I'm trying. I'm still trying. I'm doing my best. I'm doing what I can to kind of keep my feet moving in front of me, and to not go back to the darkest times that I kind of alluded to earlier. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough out there. It's tough in this day and age, right? I feel like I'm in an awkward age where like I'm old enough to have like remembered times before cell phones and like the internet the way it is now, and like endless social media. Like, you actually go to a friend's place. Like even when cell phones became a thing, there wasn't social media. A lot of the phones wouldn't connect to Wi-Fi and stuff, right? You would text a friend, what's up, or call a friend, hey, what are we doing tonight? And you get your meetup time or whatever, and then you go hang out with friends, and then not everyone's face is stuck in their phone when you're hanging out, right? Like I remember those kinds of times. But I'm also young enough to have like kind of been around while technology was changing and being young enough to understand while technology was changing. But I'm in this weird spot that like if that I'm just slightly too old to have quickly pivoted without some foresight into what the modern world is. You know what I mean? In terms of jobs and all that kind of stuff. I still could do it now, but the fact that I'm aging, and even now, people that were in that field, they're going to be getting eliminated by AI and all that stuff, right? So it's like, even if I had the foresight back then as a teenager that, didn't have the foresight to focus on something different, I could still be getting eliminated. So yeah, it's tough out there. It's tough out there for work and everything. I hope it doesn't last forever, but it's tough. Okay, I think that's the end for me update. We have one big update, and this is going to be the heavy one. I'm going to warn you guys right now. I'm probably going to get emotional. I'm going to do my best to hold it together, but I may have to pause here and there because I will get emotional. And if you have a problem with that, well, I mean, tough. Humans have emotions. Males and females alike, they have emotions. Everyone feels emotions differently, but males and females alike, of all ages, of all genders, races, everything, whatever you are, if you're a human being, you're capable of feeling emotions, and society saying otherwise is bullshit. And if you buy into that, it's bullshit. So I'm going to get emotional in terms of what I talk about. I'm going to do the best I can to kind of keep it together so I don't become a blabbering mess. If I get too bad, I will have to pause and I'll cut and edit and whatever. But I'm going to do what I can. So the part of the reason why the last year's also been very hard, on top of everything that I have mentioned, and why, there's been a couple month gap since my last video, why I was probably getting irritable in some of my last videos. And so I alluded to it in my update. I made a comment about how, there's health things going on between both myself and a parent. So my mother, who I live with, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I think October 2024 it was. Yeah, I think so. So not too long after I got laid off. And honestly, only a handful of months after she retired, finally. After she worked I think an extra year and a bit, or something, or a year on retirement age here in Canada. So she finally was like, yeah, you know what, fine, I'm tired, let's retire. And then she was and then I got laid off, which was not great. And then she got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I don't know if you guys know the ins and outs of all the cancers. There's 1,000,001 of them. Pancreatic cancer is one of the ones you don't cure. You don't cure it. It's just about when you catch it kind of determines how long you have. If you catch it early enough and everything goes right for you, on average, maybe you get 5 years post diagnosis. Some people maybe get a little bit more if you're lucky, but typically you might get about 5 years if everything's just right. Everything's perfect. Caught it early. They're able to say do a surgery and your body's receptive to chemo treatments or whatever the hell. You might get about 5 years post-diagnosis. We are now obviously just a bit over a year post-diagnosis. It's been a very hard year. A very hard fought year. My mom is not one of the lucky ones. She's not going to make it much longer. Maybe a month, maybe 2. We're working on getting her into hospice at this point so she can be comfortable. But yeah, we fought. We really did. We really fought. Early on, when she was first diagnosed, there was actually some positive outlook. The surgeon at the time was like, hey, yeah, I think I can do the surgery on this because it's in a different spot than usual. And it seemed early-ish, not as early as it could have been, right? As with a lot of these types of things, The only reason it's caught is because you're starting to get the symptom of something, which a lot of times when you get the symptom of something, it's often too late. But he was like, no, I think we can actually do this. And then there were some weird delays and hiccups and this and that. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't like it went like forever, but it was enough that all of a sudden the surgeon was like, I actually, I can't do it. I think it had grown like by 0.1 of a centimeter or something like that, or like it's like a millimeter. So really not anything that seemed like it was too big, but apparently it was like actually sitting on a vein or something like that, that they were worried if they went in and removed it and they nicked the vein, would they be able to stop the bleeding? And if they did stop the bleeding, a lot of times the quality of life drops off real fast after. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the surgeon. I think he was a bit of a dickhead, but so we kind of very quickly lost a little hope, but then she went on to chemo. And again, early on, it was actually going okay. It was actually shrinking the tumor and everything. And so it was like, okay, can we get this? Can we get the surgery then? Because like we were right on the edge before, and now that it's smaller than it was, why can we not get it? But for some reason, that never got entertained. I have opinions on the matter in terms of the oncologist that has handled it. I think while oncologists do a very important job, not everyone's, just because you understand the knowledge, not everyone is maybe good at it. You know what I mean? Just because you understand the book smarts of it, it's more than that. And I think her oncologist is a bit of a piece of shit. I'm gonna be frank. I think he's a bit of a piece of shit. Actually, I think he's a lot of a piece of shit, because he's yelled at her one time too when she was alone at one of her appointments. I think he's a lot of a piece of shit. And reviews about him for people that are within my mom's age bracket are not great. They're great when you're younger, but he seems to have a bias against older people. My mom is 68. She just turned 68 on January 4th, so she made it to 68. But yeah, I think he's a piece of shit. Yeah, I will never understand why, if we were almost able to get surgery right away, and then we got the tumor shrunk with the chemo, why it never was an option again, or why radiation or something more targeted was never chosen. Instead, he continued to pump my mom with chemo as long as he could, but part of the chemo, there is long-term risks for it damaging your nerve endings in your fingers, and eventually it did happen. So they had to remove that portion of the chemo, and after that, kind of everything started going downhill. Chemo essentially sort of stopped working. I mean, it obviously slowed the growth, which is why she's still here just over a year later. But it was no longer shrinking the tumor. We would frequently see that, her markers would go up a little bit, and then she'd get a scan a few minutes, and sometimes the tumor didn't look remarkably bigger, like they said, no change. Other times, oh yeah, it's up a little bit, it's up a little bit, it's up a little bit. And at that point, to me, I feel like you should try a different approach. If it's clear that it's not really doing it, like there is all options out there. I don't know why they were never explored. But he just kept pumping her full of this shit, and I just watched her slowly waste away. She went from full of life, even while getting her chemo early on, still kind of up on her feet, doing her thing, to more and more energy being lost, more and more energy being lost, more and more weight being lost, becoming a bit of a shell of herself. And he waited basically until like she had wasted away down to, I think now she's even lighter, but at the time she was only about, I think it was like 84 pounds. And he's like, finally decided, okay, it's enough of that other chemo. Let's try this one. It's a bit softer, a bit lighter. It's definitely not going to shrink the tumor, but it should help, it stop it from growing. But her body was too weak, so we tried her on one run of that, and she just couldn't handle it. Her body just couldn't handle it, and there's a lot of other reasons why it couldn't handle it. And I'll get into those. But he waited too long, and now we are where we are. He tried to make that switch, I think it was October, when she had that one, October 2025. She has not had a drop of chemo since then, just because she's too weak. So at this point, it's basically going untreated because she just physically can't handle it. I'm pretty sure at this point she's probably in the 70-pound range, if not less. But yeah, it feels like we also had every complication under the sun. Um, I guess maybe because of where it was growing, it started pressing on a lot of organs. Um, the first big one is obviously like the bile duct. Um, it started closing the bile duct off, so she couldn't drain bile. So she just kept getting very jaundice. That's actually initially how we found out she had the tumor. It's because she was getting a bit jaundice. So they started doing the treatment, and obviously with the treatment and it shrinking, the jaundice kind of went away because her bile duct was being pressed on less and it opened up. But as time went on and it stopped working, she got jaundice again, and they realized, okay, your bile duct is blocked up. So they went in and put a stent to kind of open it up, and that worked for a while. But then she also had the complication that she was having a really hard time eating. She was constantly feeling full, but not in her stomach, above her stomach. She was feeling like full, which is weird. Ooh, frame right there. What happened there? Even I'm like, what? But she was kind of feeling constantly full to the point that she actually started puking up a lot, which got me really worried. I wanted to take her to the hospital sooner than she would let me. She kept fighting me, but eventually we brought her in, got her scans done, and we found out the reason that's happening is, I don't know the technical term, but basically the opening into her stomach, the tube into the stomach the food goes through, had been basically completely blocked off, essentially from the tumor. It was pressing, so it was closing the tube off. So that's why the food wasn't going in. That's why she felt full. It's why she was puking up, because the body's like, well, I can't get it in me to digest it. Get it the fuck out of me, basically, right? So the answer for that was another stint into that tube. So we geared up for that one. They did it. They did get the stent in with a little bit of work. However, there was major complications because the food was so unable to go into her stomach, and it had been so long. She probably had a bunch of food sitting there, still waiting to get into the stomach to digest, because it was such a small opening. Because you're supposed to go into surgery with empty stomach, which we follow those rules. But yeah, because there was such old food that when they went into the surgery, she ended up getting sick. She puked, and they did what they could to suction stuff up, but she ended up aspirating, which basically means the puke went into her lungs, which, FYI, you're not supposed to have puke in your lungs. You're not supposed to have stuff in your lungs other than like air. So yeah, she got some puke in your lungs. She aspirated. It was a very scary period. We weren't even sure if she was going to make it. That was probably back in maybe 5-6 months ago from the time of the recording / uploading. She was in the hospital for a little over a week, trying to recover from that one. And even when she came home, she was still very weak. And quite frankly, she never really bounced back from it. But it is what it was. What it was. She ended up with like an aspiration, pneumonia, and all kinds of stuff. So she's had it really rough. And I've just really watched her rapidly deteriorate since then. That her body, yes, she has the cancer, but I think that really just kind of beat her body up, like really badly. Yeah, she could eat food at that point. Like, yeah, the stint was in and it was a success from what we were told. So she could eat her food again. And like she did, she got food in. But very quickly, she never really was able to take advantage of it, right? Like the whole late stage cancer stuff where you start to lose your appetite kind of took over. So it didn't even matter that she could get food into her. She just wasn't driven to get the food into her. And now we are where we are now, where I finally had to rush her in because she just was so bad. She's been in and out of the hospital. She was in the hospital over the Christmas, right? Like my Christmas was kind of fucky because my mom was in the hospital getting looked after because she was not doing well, right? And then she came home for a bit, and then I rushed her back in again not long ago, which has led us to where we are because, again, not doing well. It was a bunch of headaches, bunch of bullshit. Again, I'm not going to get into it, but basically, yeah, she's not doing well. She is at the late stage. Actually, probably it should have, honestly, we shouldn't be where we are now. Again, her fucking piece of shit oncologist should have made the recommendation sooner to start the hospice stuff so she can start being more comfortable in what little life she has left. But he's a piece of shit. So yeah, we finally got it through the hospital. Like before, they ended up kicking her out because there's technically nothing they can do. But like, thankfully, the palliative team got the hospice thing going. So we just kind of got to activate that once we're ready to go, and then hopefully we get her a bed before it's too late. Because she's at a point, yeah, where her even with the stent and everything in her stomach opening and all that, it's closing off again because of the tumor. So she's on a liquid diet, like she's strictly on liquids, for what little liquid she eats. She also has what's called a biliary drain because her bile duct became fully blocked off again. That stent ended up eventually failing, so she has a tube into her body, goes onto the outside, drains her bile into a bag that we gotta drain a couple times a day, so she doesn't get all fucking yellow full of her bile in your body, right? So she's had a very rough go of it, and she's definitely there, and it's very hard to watch someone go through that. Especially your mother. So, yeah, I rambled a lot. I'm sorry. I guess I needed to get it out. But yeah, right now it seems like she's only got 1 or 2 months left. And that's including when we hopefully can get her into hospice before it's too late. So she's at least comfortable. But the reason I mentioned Humana Z earlier is in the sense that I want to do it. Obviously, it's coming out in February. If my mom only has 1 or 2 months left, she could pass potentially in or around when it releases. But also, obviously, that's part of the reason why I haven't done videos. I've been focused on taking care of her. It's all on my shoulders. You know, all the housework, making sure she's eating, making sure she's getting to appointments, just making sure the house is clean. We have a cat I got to feed. You know what I mean? It's on me. There's a lot on my shoulders. And as someone who has depression, anxiety, etc., it weighs probably even heavier. But yeah, I have every intention of continuing the channel, but there may be further gaps in the content. Just because it's getting more and more real. I'm going to have to handle all the funeral, the burial stuff and all that stuff. There's going to be a lot to do. Because again, it's on me. I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be burnt out. I'm going to be grieving. I kind of already am grieving in a weird way. It's like a weird pre-grieve. You're like grieving the idea of the grieving process. You know what I mean? Because I know what's coming and I know it's going to be hard. Because like I said, I don't have a job. I don't really have friends like I used to have. I have like one in-person friend. I used to have a lot growing up, but I don't have very many anymore. So like I don't have a whole lot of people, so I'm going to be very much alone. I have some family that I chat to again. But again, you know, I can only lean on them so much. So I'm going to be very much alone. And as someone with my conditions and my history, that is scary. So that weighs heavy on me too. You know, is my mind going to betray me? But yeah, I will ask for your patience in this time. Because there's also the fact that, and not that you guys necessarily need to hear this, we don't own a home. We don't have our own home. We rent an apartment. We have been here for 17 years. The problem is my mom's name is on the lease. While my name is there as a tenant, an additional tenant, she's the leaseholder. When she passes, we will be basically kicked out within 30 days. There's not a world, at least here we're in Canada, or my part of Canada, where I am allowed to take over the lease, other than like some weird exceptional circumstances. The only person that technically has a right to do that where I live would be a spouse. Obviously, I am not that, so there's no legal right for me to be able to take over the lease. They might be nice and give me first dibs at renting it, like keeping it, but it would be at the new rental rate because obviously we've been here for 17 years. The way it works here, I don't know how it works everywhere else. Rent does get increased year over year, but we're like paying much less, like actually $1,000 less than what they would charge for this apartment now for a new tenant. I can't afford that. As I said, I don't have a job right now. I will be getting a very limited life insurance that I will have to live off of until I can find work, hopefully. So I have all that stress. What's more likely to happen is I'm going to have to leave where I live. I've had to reconnect with my father, who I'm off and on with. That's a different thing. He lives in an entirely different province, so I will have to move into another province. He has a space for me or another home for me that I can go move to. And he said, you're welcome to live here. He won't even charge me rent, which is nice, but I'll have to, my own living expenses, food, etc. But like I said, it's an entirely different province that, is away from the little bit of family on my mom's side that lives where I live. I'll be away from them. And not only that, I will be isolated because he lives in a very rural part of that province, and I won't even be very close to him. I'll be about an hour away. So I will know one person in that province, and I'm an hour away from that person. So I will be very isolated while trying to grieve. But also, case in point, if I'm having to move provinces, that's a big thing. I may not have a lot of time for making videos, you know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a bit getting everything up. So I'm going to do everything I can to keep going, but I am very tired. I'm very exhausted. I'm very burnt out, and I apologize. I'm going to do Humanity when I can, okay? If anyone is watching this still that is a Humanity person, I'm going to do it. I promise. It will get done. It just may not be right at launch because life circumstances right now are very difficult, and they're kind of taking the focus. But yeah, I think that's about it. I think I rambled long enough, longer than I intended to ramble. I apologize. Like I said, I guess in some weird way I use this as a bit of a fucking outlet, which is not necessarily the healthiest. But kind of once I got going, my mind kind of just kept spinning and kind of get going, right? So if you're still here, thanks for listening, and hopefully thanks for understanding. And I'll see you when I can see you guys. I'll do my best. I'm gonna do my best here. But yeah, see you when I see you guys. Bye.